Okay, for lesson 19, we're going to start taking a look at rational expressions, but toward an eye toward adding and subtracting them. So if you remember from working with fractions, you can't add or subtract any two fractions until you have a common denominator. So in the example I've just put up here, we have 7/15 and 5/6. Since the denominators are not the same number, I can't go ahead and add those numbers together. So I need to find a common denominator for 15 and 6. Okay, so what I'm looking for is a common multiple of both 15 and 6. So one way I can look at finding this is I can take 15 and I can factor it. So I know 15 is 3 times 5, and I know that 6 is 2 times 3. Okay, so now what I can do is for each unique number in this factorization, in these pairs of factorization, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the highest power. So the way I'm going to do this, I've got I've got 3 factors in here. I have 2, right? I have 3, and I have 5, okay? So when I look at the number 2, 2 is not a factor of 15, so there's nothing there, but 2 is a factor of 6, okay? So what I want to do is for finding a common denominator, I want to take the biggest thing I can take. And between taking nothing and taking 2, I'm going to take 2. For 3 is a factor of 15. Whoops, so I'll write that in there. But 3 is not a factor. 3 is also a factor of 6. So I have 1 3 and 1 3. Okay, they're both the same size, so that means I'm going to take a single 3. Okay? And then finally for 5 is a factor of 15, but 5 is not a factor of 6. Again, I'm going to take the most that I can, and so I'm going to take the 5. So my common denominator is going to be 2 times 3 times 5, which is going to be 30. Okay? So now what I have to do is I have to express my fractions, okay, in terms of the denominator 30. Okay? So I have to figure out what goes up in the numerator so that 7/15 is the same as some number over 30. So the way that I do that, so I'm going to write down 7/15 here, okay? And then I'm going to multiply it by some fancy way of writing 1, okay, in order to get a denominator of 30. So what I notice is that to get from 15 to 30, I have to multiply by 2. Okay? So if I do 15 times 2, I get 30. Okay? Whatever I do to the bottom, I also have to do to the top. So I'm going to take 7 times 2, that gives me 14. So 7/15 is the same as 14 over 30. Okay? I can do the same thing with 5/6. And, okay, in order to get from 6 to 30, I have to multiply by 5. Well, if I multiply by 5 on the bottom, I've got to multiply by 5 on the top. So 5 times 5 is 25. So to do this addition, instead of adding 7/15 plus 5/6, I'm going to add 14/30 plus, not 23/30, 25/30. I'm sorry about that. Okay, and that is going to give me 14 plus 25 is 39. And my denominator for addition and subtraction stays the same as 30. Okay? Now I'm going to see what I can go ahead and factor out. Well, 3 divides evenly into 30 and 3 divides evenly into 39. So 3 goes into 30 10 times. 3 goes into 39 13 times, and my simplified answer here is 13/10. So as we go through and we're working with rational expressions, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to see if we need to find a common denominator, convert over to that common denominator, add or subtract, depending on what it is that we're doing, okay? And then we're going to simplify our answer as much as possible.